Part 4: Courage changes your mind. How to become the happiest person you know. In the next 3 chapters, you'll learn the step-by-step approach to how you can use the 5-second rule in combination with some recent research-based strategies to beat fear, stop worrying, manage or cure anxiety, and change the way you think. If you've seen me on TV as a commentator for CNN or read my columns in Success magazine, it's easy to assume that I was born with the confidence of a warrior. That assumption only gets strengthened when you watch my YouTube videos, my TEDx talk, or experience me live on stage. Yes, I am confident now, but I was not born this way. For most of my adult life, I was a loudmouth extrovert who was plagued by deep insecurity. Confidence is a skill I've built over the years by practicing acts of everyday courage. What a lot of people don't know about me is that I have suffered from anxiety for more than 25 years. I had debilitating postpartum depression when our first daughter Sawyer was born and I couldn't be left alone with her for the first 2 months. I have taken Zoloft to control my panic attacks for nearly 2 decades. The struggle with my thoughts has been real and, at times, terrifying. When I first discovered the rule, I used it to change my behavior. The rule worked wonders, and as acting with everyday courage became second nature, my confidence grew stronger. However, anxiety never disappeared. It was there simmering beneath the surface. I focused on learning to live with it, managing it, and making sure I didn't let it boil over into full-blown panic. About 4 years ago, I started to wonder if I could use the 5-second rule to change more than my physical behavior. I wondered if I could change my thoughts. I had seen the effects it had on other habits, so why not try to break the mental habit of anxiety, panic, and fear? They are patterns that we repeat after all. They are just habits. I started using the rule to change the way that my mind worked. I began by using the rule to break the habit of worrying. As I mastered that skill, I used the rule to control my anxiety and beat my fear of flying. It worked. As I write this sentence, I can tell you I have cured myself of anxiety. I haven't taken Zoloft in years and am panic attack free. I no longer have a habit of worrying. And my fear of flying. Gone. Learning to take control of my mind, direct my thoughts, and dismantle fear has been the single greatest thing I have ever done to improve the quality of my life. I almost never feel worried. And the rare times that I do, I just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and direct my mind towards the solutions rather than worrying about the problems. I have transformed my mind using the rule and I am the happiest and most optimistic that I have ever been. My mind is working for me instead of against me. Now, it's your turn. First, you'll learn how to break the addiction to worrying and negative self-talk using the 5-second rule, the science of habits, and the power of gratitude. Second, you'll dive into the subject of anxiety and panic. You'll learn what it is and what it isn't. And I will give you the step-by-step method for how you can interrupt, reframe, and eventually eliminate anxiety from your own life. Finally, you'll learn a proven strategy for how you can beat any fear. Using my fear of flying as an example, you'll learn how to use the rule with anchor thoughts to prevent fear from taking over your mind. Everything you are about to learn is so simple and powerful that you can even teach it to your kids. Life is amazing. And then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living. Heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. L.R. Nost Chapter 12 Stop worrying more than any other change. Ending your habit of worrying will create the single biggest positive impact in your life. Believe it or not, you were taught how to worry. As a kid, you heard your parents worrying constantly, be careful, wear a hat or you'll catch a cold, and don't sit so close to the TV. As adults, we spend way too much time and energy worrying about things that we can't control or that could go wrong. When you get to be near the end of your life, you'll wish you hadn't. Dr. Carl Pilmer is a professor of human development at Cornell University and is the founder of the Legacy Project. He has met with 1,200 senior citizens to discuss the meaning of life. He was shocked to learn that most people near the end of their lives had the same regret. I wish I hadn't spent so much of my lifetime worrying. Their advice was devastatingly simple and direct. Worry is an enormous waste of your precious and limited lifetime. You can stop worrying. And the 5-second rule will teach you how. Worrying is a default setting that your mind goes to when you aren't paying attention. The key is catching yourself when you drift into worry, and then regaining mental control by using the rule. Here's an example. My husband recently got his motorcycle license and just bought a small, used motorcycle. Yesterday, I was sitting inside the house and noticed him on the bike pulling out of the driveway. As he drove down the road, I noticed that my mind immediately started to drift toward worry. I started worrying about whether or not he would get hit by a car, become a statistic, and if I would soon get a call from the police telling me that he's been in an accident. The worry hijacked me within 5 seconds. That fast. And you know what? My worrying about it won't keep him safe and it won't prevent an accident. As one 83-year-old in the study said, my worrying won't solve anything. It will just put me on edge for the entire time Chris is out riding his motorcycle, which robs me of enjoying the present moment. As soon as I catch myself worrying, I use the rule, 5 4 3 2 1, and I think of something more positive, like the thought of him smiling as he drives down the road. The funny thing is that Chris is also a huge cyclist. He competes in triathlons and is out on the road taking 40 to 50 mile training rides by himself all the time. I never worry about that. But here I am worrying about the motorcycle he is driving down a road at 10 miles per hour. Could something go wrong? Of course it could. But it usually doesn't. When you start to use the rule to end worrying, you'll be amazed by how often your mind just drifts to something negative. Mine does it every day. It really sucks. And each day, I fight against it. There are some days that I have to use the rule a dozen or more times to control my thoughts. Just the other day I caught myself drifting into worry over and over again. Our daughters were returning home from a service trip in Peru, and throughout the day, I caught my mind drifting to thoughts of plane crashes, missed flights, falling off a cliff in the Andes, bus accidents, lost bags, and the girls being stranded at the airport. The girls were fine, and without the rule I would have ruined my day. Each time I caught my mind drifting to a bad thought, I would say to myself, oh no you don't, and just point it to a thought that made me smile, like the girls talking a million miles an hour that night in the kitchen as they told us about the trip. Feelings of love often trigger worry. Another thing that has surprised me about worry is just how subtle it is and how fast it can seize control of you. I've been surprised by how often I start to worry the moment that I feel happiness or love. This spring, it happened to me as I was looking at our 17-year-old daughter. I had this incredible moment when my heart just suddenly swelled up and I felt a tidal wave of love wash over me. And then, without warning, all these worries flooded into my mind and stole the moment. All I felt was fear. We were at the mall. Sawyer was trying on dresses for her high school prom. It had been a long afternoon. We were on our third dress store, and she had easily tried on more than 40 dresses, and she hated every last one of them. Telling her she looked amazing only made her mood worse. I was in the dressing room with her, putting the rejects back on the hangers and handing her the next gown to try on. I started panicking that we'd never find one that she liked. I handed her another one to try on and said, let's just bankrupt those next 3 and then get out of here. I stepped out of the dressing room to give her some space and called Chris. Suddenly she called out to me, Mom, can you come in here? I tried to read her voice but couldn't tell if she was crying, frustrated, needing help with a stuck zipper, or something else. I cracked open the door. She had on a floor-length gown and I could see her reflection in the mirror and she looked, in a word, stunning. It was perfect. The dress was peach and had beautiful flowy side panels that were pink. It was everything she had wanted, no sparkles, no lace, an open back, and a bright color. Our eyes caught in the mirror. What do you think, Mom? I could feel the tears coming. When she was an infant, I remember experiencing that same tidal wave of emotion that can wash over you when you love someone so much. In the middle of the night, I'd wake up to go check in on her, and there standing alone in her nursery, watching her sleep on her back with her arms raised up above her head, I'd get hit with this tidal wave of love and just marvel at my ability to love something so much. It felt like my heart might burst. That's what I felt standing outside the dressing room in the mall. I just felt love. And then, the worries rushed in and stole the moment from me. Without warning, I was thinking about her heading off to college, getting married, being a new mom, living far away from me, time passing, getting older, and my life being over. My life flashed before me. Time was racing by, and for a fleeting moment, I felt I was losing her. I felt overwhelmed with sadness and loss, and my eyes swelled with tears. Sawyer saw me getting emotional, and thought it was because of the dress. Ah, Mom, don't cry. You'll make me cry. But I was crying because of how scared I was to see her grow up. I was crying because time was passing too fast and I wanted life to slow down. Worry robbed me of all the joy in that moment. It took me away from Sawyer and into a dark place in my head. Instead of just being present and in awe of my beautiful daughter, I felt afraid. That's how worries and fear hijack your mind and rob you of the magic and wonder in your life. Green Brown observed this exact phenomenon in her research for her bestseller Daring Greatly. She found that feeling a worst-case scenario in moments of joy, such as not being able to enjoy a hug with your child without worrying about something bad happening to him, is an amazingly common phenomenon. And why is it so hard for us to soften into joy? Because we are trying to beat vulnerability to the punch, says Dr. Brown. When your mind takes you somewhere sad, dark, doubtful, or negative, you don't have to go with it. I love what Hen wrote to me. 99.999% of the time, it has always been a fake reality that I had created in my head. When you find your inner voice becoming an enemy, as Hen and I have experienced, it's important to stop worrying and recognize that in those 5 seconds, you can reclaim control. I started to silently counting to myself, 5, 4, 3. And as I counted, I could feel the fear lowering inside my body. Counting yanked me out of my head and planted me in the present moment. It switched gears from worry to focus. I was not going to let my brain rob me of this experience with my daughter. I was not going to allow the habit of worrying to derail me from being in the present and taking a mental photograph. Then I asked myself 2 simple questions. What am I grateful for in this moment? What do I want to remember? When you ask that simple question, you impact your brain at a biological level. In order to respond, you have to take stock of your life, relationships, and work and search for an answer in the moment. It forces you to focus on the positive aspects of your life. As soon as you think about what you are grateful for, you start feeling grateful instead of worried. The answer to the question was clear to me. I was grateful to have such an incredible young woman as my daughter. And after 3 hours of drama, I was also grateful she found a dress. Katie is also using the rule to reflect on what she is grateful for and to control her worries. Nothing in life is perfect. Nothing at all. But you can use 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to quiet the mental chatter and learn to appreciate all of the small moments, like feeling grateful for your daughter. Feeling grateful doesn't just feel good. According to neuroscientist Alex Cobb, it changes your brain chemistry by activating the brainstem region that produces dopamine. With my worries gone, I took a deep breath and stepped into the dressing room to move closer to her and put my hand on her shoulder. Our eyes met in the mirror. Well, what do you think, Mom? I think Luke is going to have a heart attack. You look absolutely gorgeous. It's okay to be scared. Being scared means you're about to do something really, really brave. Chapter 13 End Anxiety. Anxiety is what happens when your habit of worrying spirals out of control. As a lifelong anxiety sufferer, I know all too well the grip it can hold on you and how scary it can feel. I also know how to beat it. Using the 5-second rule in combination with a strategy called reframing is the answer. The key to beating anxiety is understanding it. If you can catch it right as it kicks in and reframe it, you'll stabilize your thoughts before your mind escalates it into full-blown panic. And over time, as you use the 5-second rule over and over, your anxiety will weaken and become what it started out as: simple worries. As you just learned, the habit of worry is easy to break. I think I was born anxious. As a child, my parents said I had a nervous stomach, and I worried about everything. I was that kid at camp who was so homesick she had to go home early. As a college student, my face would turn as red as a tomato when I got called on. I relied on liquid courage to talk to hot guys at parties because without alcohol I'd get stress hives on my neck. The panic attacks started in my early 20s, when I began law school. A panic attack feels like you're about to have a heart attack and can happen for two reasons. 1. Because you have something scary to do: public speaking, facing an ex, getting on airplane, or 2. For no reason at all. If you've never had a panic attack, here's the best way to describe them. It's when your mind and body have a near-miss experience that's totally out of context. Allow me to explain using a really simple analogy. Normal panic vs. panic attacks. There will be tons of times in your life when you will panic and it will be completely normal. Let's say you are driving a car and are about to change lanes on the highway. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a car races by you and cuts you off. You swerve to get out of the way, but they nearly miss you. When a near miss happens on the highway, you feel a surge of adrenaline race through your body. Your heart races. Your breath speeds up. Your cortisol surges. Your body goes into a state of hyper-alertness so you can take control of the car. You might even get a little sweaty. As soon as your body freaks out, it triggers your mind to find a reason why your body is so agitated. In this example on the highway, your brain knows you almost got in a car crash and that's why your body freaked out. When your mind has an explanation for why your body just freaked out, it won't escalate the anxiety. Your mind will allow your body to calm down because it knows the danger has passed. Your life will go back to normal, and you'll be a little more cautious when you change lanes next time. When you have a panic attack, that same near-miss sensation rushes your mind and body, without any warning and with no preceding event. You'll be standing in your kitchen, pouring a cup of coffee, and out of nowhere you have a sudden surge of adrenaline race through your body, just like what happened when that car nearly missed you on the highway. Your heart races. Your breath speeds up. You might get a little sweaty. Your cortisol surges. Your body goes into a state of hyper-awareness. Now that your body is in an aroused state, your mind is going to race to try understand why. If you don't have a legitimate reason why, your mind will think you must be in actual danger. Your mind will go prehistoric on you and escalate the fear, thinking that danger is imminent. As your heart starts to race, your mind races for an explanation so it can make sense of what's happening to your body and decide how to protect you. Maybe I'm having a heart attack. Maybe I don't want to get married next month, after all. Maybe I'm getting fired. Maybe I'm dying. If your mind can't find a suitable explanation, your brain will make the anxiety worse so that you will want to physically run away from the situation and leave the room. If you've ever seen someone have a panic attack, they freak out, dart around, have scattered thoughts, are deer in the headlights, look, and suddenly have to leave the room. It's a vicious cycle and one I was trapped in for years. For a long time, I understood neither the difference between normal panic and panic attacks, nor the role that my mind was playing in escalating my anxiety. I went to therapists and tried all kinds of cognitive techniques to try to stop myself from panicking. It got so bad that I became afraid of the panic attacks themselves, and that fear, of course, just made me have more panic attacks. Finally, I just medicated myself with Zoloft, a miracle drug. Zoloft worked wonders for me, for almost 2 decades. And if you are in a hole you can't climb out of, get professional help, and possibly drugs. While not a substitute for therapy, they can be life-changing. I assumed that I would just take Zoloft for the rest of my life. And then we had kids and all 3 of them started to struggle with their own form of anxiety. It was beyond mere worrying. The anxiety was impacting their lives. They stopped doing sleepovers, slept on the floor of our bedroom, and were worried about everything. Oakley called his panicky state, Oliver, and our daughter Sawyer called her anxiety a what-if loop. She once turned to me and said, "It's like there's this what-if loop in my head, and once I start thinking about all the what-ifs, I get stuck thinking about all the what-ifs, and I can't get out of it because there are always what-ifs." I knew how scary it was to suffer from it, and it was downright heartbreaking to see our kids struggling and afraid. It was very eye-opening and frustrating trying to help them deal with their anxiety because nothing worked. We went to specialists and tried all kinds of techniques. We set up games with prizes for them to face their fears. It just seemed to get worse. I came off Zoloft so I could face my own anxiety head-on without the help of drugs. I wanted to understand it better and figure out how to beat it, so I could help my kids figure out ways to beat theirs. Here's what I learned. Trying to calm down does not work. I've spent countless hours with therapists who have told me and the kids to just change the channel and think about something else. That works if you are merely worried, but on its own, that strategy doesn't work for full-blown anxiety. And there's a reason. When you feel anxious, you are in a state of physical agitation. When you tell a person to calm down, you are asking someone to go from 60 mph to 0 miles per hour. It's like trying to stop a freight train by throwing a boulder in front of it. It'll jump the tracks. A study in the journal Behavior Research and Therapy showed that people who naturally try to suppress their unwanted thoughts end up being more distressed by said thoughts. That's right, when you try to tell yourself to just calm down, you make the anxiety worse because you are fighting against it. When you understand how panic works, what it is, and the role your brain has in making it worse, you can beat it. There are two strategies that work incredibly well together: using the 5-second rule to assert control over your mind and then reframing the anxiety as excitement so that your brain doesn't escalate it and your body can calm down. Here's how you do it. Excitement and anxiety feel the same in your body. I first used this reframing strategy as a public speaker. I get a lot of questions about public speaking and specifically how did I get over my fears and nerves about public speaking. My answer always surprises people. I have never gotten over my fears and nerves. I just use them to my advantage. I speak for a living. A lot. In 2016, I was named the most booked female speaker in America, 98 keynotes in 1 year. Amazing. Do I get nervous? Absolutely. Every single time. But here's the trick, I don't call it nerves. I call it excitement, because physiologically anxiety and excitement are the exact same thing. Let me say that again. Fear and excitement are the exact same thing in your body. The only difference between excitement and anxiety is what your mind calls it. Like the near-miss example. If your brain has a good explanation for why your body is freaking out, it won't escalate things. The first time I ever really gave a legitimate speech was that TEDx talk in San Francisco. I remember standing backstage listening to one PhD after another PhD give their talks, thinking to myself, this is the dumbest thing I've ever gotten myself into. I am going to sound like a complete moron compared to these smart people. My palms were sweaty. My heart was racing. My face was hot. My armpits were dripping like Niagara Falls. My body was preparing for action. It was getting ready to do something. But I told myself that I was nervous. I labeled all those sensations as a sign that something bad was about to happen and the nerves got worse. Want to know something wild? 6 years and hundreds of speeches later, I still feel the exact same things in my body backstage. My palms sweat. My heart races. My face gets hot. My armpits start dripping. Physiologically, I'm in a state of arousal. I'm about to go into action and my body is getting ready. I feel the exact same thing as fear, I just channel it in a positive direction. The more speeches I give, the more comfortable and confident I became about what I was saying, but as I gained confidence in my ability, I noticed that the feelings in my body didn't disappear. That's when it dawned on me that maybe this was just my body's way to get ready to do something cool. So, I started telling myself that I was getting excited, instead of calling it nervousness. Say you're excited. I never knew my trick had some serious science behind it. It's called anxiety reappraisal. Reframing your anxiety as excitement really works. It is as simple as it is powerful. Harvard Business School professor Alison Wood Brooks has conducted study after study to prove that it not only works to lower anxiety, it actually makes you perform better in math tests, speaking, and so forth. In a nutshell, since anxiety is a state of arousal, it's much easier to convince your brain that all those nervous feelings are just excitement rather than to try to calm yourself down. When using this technique in experiments ranging from singing karaoke to giving a speech on camera to taking a math test, participants who said, "I'm excited," did better in every single challenge than those participants who said, "I'm anxious." Reframing your nervous into enthusiasm works, just as Susie did. She used the 5-second rule to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and kept that feeling in her stomach from stopping her. Now, here's the catch about telling yourself, "I'm excited." It doesn't actually lower the feelings surging through your body. It just gives your mind an explanation that empowers you. That way the nervous feelings do not escalate. You stay in control and the agitation in your body will start to calm down as you begin to move. The next time you have a panic attack while making coffee, experience stage fright, have pre-game jitters, or are worrying about a big exam or a job interview, use the 5-second rule and this new research to beat your anxiety. As soon as you feel the anxiety take over your body, take control of your mind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just start telling yourself, "I'm so excited," and push yourself to move forward. This is what J. Greg did when he reframed his feelings in order to beat anxiety. The physical impact, the push, is critical and it begins with counting. Exerting yourself allows your prefrontal cortex to take control and focus you on a positive explanation. When you first start using this strategy, you might have to repeat it 27 times in 1 hour. The first time our 11-year-old used it to beat his anxiety about sleeping over at a friend's house, he said, "I'm excited to sleep over and over for the entire 6-mile drive." Bless his little heart. When I pulled into Quinn's driveway, I put the car in park and said, "How are you doing?" He responded, "My heart is still racing and my stomach feels funny, but I'm excited to sleep over." That was 6 months ago. His anxiety about sleepovers is gone. He's now actually excited. And that's the power of this tool, it truly works. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. A. Milner Chapter 14 Beat Fear. Fear will make you do nutty things. One of my greatest fears in life used to be dying in a fiery plane crash. When I had to get on a plane, I used to be a complete weirdo. I had all these superstitions about flying. First, I would scan the boarding area looking for women with small babies, men or women in uniform, priests, nuns, wheelchairs, off-duty pilots catching a ride home, or just generally kind-looking people. Then, I would tell myself that God wouldn't let the plane go down with these nice folks on board. That would assuage me until I got on the plane. Then every bump or sound the plane made on the taxi out to the runway made my heart race and chest tighten. Takeoff was the worst. By the time the wheels left the tarmac, I was usually in a full state of panic. I'd close my eyes and visualize an explosion, terrorists, my row getting sucked out of the plane, or the plane just dropping from the sky. I'd squeeze the armrest and could barely breathe. If the captain spoke to us over the loudspeaker, my fear index would cut in half. I didn't relax until the seat belt lights turned off, which was my sign that the pilots believed it was safe to move about the cabin. In my mind, this meant that the immediate threat of death by plane crash was over. I cured myself of my fear of flying, using the 5-second rule and a specific form of anxiety reappraisal that I call anchor thoughts. And you can use the rule the exact same way with any fear. Zahara did so with her fear of flying, and it worked. Here's how I did it. It's the same technique that I spoke about to Zahara. Create an anchor thought first. Before any trip, I come up with my anchor thought. This is a thought that is relevant to the trip that I am taking and will anchor me if fear sets in. I start by thinking about the trip, where I am flying to, and what I am excited to do once I get there. If I am heading to see friends in Driggs, Idaho, my anchor thought might be climbing Tabletop Mountain. If I'm traveling home to Michigan, I might think about the moment we pull into the driveway of my parents' house and my kids run out of the car to hug my folks, or of taking a nice walk along Lake Michigan with me mom. If I'm heading to a meeting in Chicago, I'll think about getting a delicious dinner with a client. Once I have a specific image in mind, the rest is very easy. This use of the 5-second rule is a form of what researchers call if-then planning. It's a way to keep yourself in control by creating a backup plan in advance. Plan A is not to get nervous. But I do get on the plane and start to feel nervous. I have my plan B. I'll use the 5-second rule and my anchor thought to beat my fear of flying. Studies show that this kind of if-then planning can boost your success rates by almost 3 times. On the plane, the moment I notice something that makes me nervous, whether that be an alarming sound, turbulence, a climb that seems to be taking too long, whether that looks ominous, or a bad vibe from a passenger next to me, my fears can be easily triggered because my pattern of thinking is so ingrained. When this happens, I start to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to flush the fear out of my head, activate my prefrontal cortex and pull myself into the present moment. Then, I force myself to anchor on the specific images of where I am flying to, and I think to myself about how excited I am to walk on the beach with my mom, have dinner with a client in Chicago, or climb Tabletop Mountain with my buddies. These anchoring images are powerful reminders of a simple truth. If I am sitting in a restaurant in Chicago having dinner with my clients tonight, or walking the beach in Michigan tomorrow morning with my mom, or arriving home in time to make the girls' lacrosse game, obviously the plane didn't crash and I have nothing to worry about. Most important, I give my mind the context it is looking for so that it doesn't escalate the fear. As I think about the anchor thought, my body calms down. By using this technique over and over again, I cured my fear of flying. And by using, I mean using it over and over. It will get easier and easier until suddenly, you won't be afraid anymore. You'll have trained your mind to default to the positive excitement about what you are about to do instead of the fear. Dana was able to use this technique successfully and she's never been so calm when flying. And Fran put it to use on the flight home immediately after learning the technique at a conference in Dallas, and it made a world of difference. I love what Fran said at the end of her note. I can't believe how much I was missing by being afraid. She's right, and it's heartbreaking. I realized the same thing. I was robbing myself of joy, opportunity, and magic every single day because I was living with fear. It doesn't have to be that way. In 5 seconds flat, you can take control. You can beat fear. Today, I am never nervous or afraid when I board a plane. Occasionally, if we hit rough turbulence, I'll break out the rule so that I don't drive my fingernails into the arm of the person sitting next to me. However, I still use this technique when I face other fears. Before a negotiation or a difficult conversation, for example, I'll create an anchor thought of the conversation or the negotiation going really well. Specifically, I might picture someone hugging me or thanking me for having the conversation, or toasting the deal with my business partner at our favorite bar. That thought keeps me grounded, present, and powerful. When you enter a conversation managing a fear, you can't be your best because part of your mind is busy trying to manage that fear in real time. When you have an anchor thought, it allows you to disappear the fear the moment that you notice your mind drift to it. Remember, even though your fears and your habits can hijack you in 5 seconds, you can take back control just as quickly and continue to do so forever. Master your mind and anything is possible.